They say the open range was more than a place, it was a way of life, a boundless sea of grass under an endless sky, where men carved their days with grit, sweat, and a company of horses. This is the untold daily life of cowboys who rode the wild. Heart of the American West, their lives woven not with glory or gunfights, but with dust storms, campfire coffee, and the quiet honor of hard work. Asterisk, imagine a land so wide and empty that the wind could talk for miles. No fences, no roads, no noise, just the hush of prairie grass and the steady rhythm of hooves in this world. Lived the cowboy his day. Beginning long before the sun cracked the horizon. He rose with the cold, the kind that stiffened your spine and bit through wool blankets his bedroll. Was the earth his alarm clock, the call of trail boss, or the rustle of cattle stirring from sleep? Asterisk, breakfast with simple beans, coffee. Maybe dried meat all cooked over open flame. The coffee was thick strong, sometimes laced with grit and ash, but to a cowboy it was gold in a cup. They packed fast, saddled their horses, and hit the trail. The cattle needed moving, grazing, watching, and counting the herd was their responsibility, and they knew each steer by heart. Their eyes trained to notice a limp, a cough, a cow missing from the count. Asterisk. The cowboy lived in the saddle, riding from sunup to sundown. The open range was no place for the weak windstorms, could whip dust like knives summer heat. Scorched through your hat and winter froze water in the canteens, yet they rode with songs on their lips, old tunes hummed under breath to calm the herd or quiet. The ghosts that rode beside them, the only music was the creak of leather, the jingle of spurs, and the soft lowing of cattle across the plains. Asterisk. Each cowboy had his gear, a saddle that fit like a second skin, a rope coiled, and ready a rifle slung across the pommel, his hat wide for sunshade. His boots shaped for stirrups, his chaps scarred from thorns and brush, his bandana served as dust mask, sweat rag, tourniquet, and sometimes blindfold for a spook. Horse, every item told a story, every mark a memory from a trail ride or stampede. Asterisk. But it wasn't all riding and ropes. There were nights around the fire where stories were shared beneath stars. So bright, they lit the prairie like daylight. They laughed, they teased, they argued over poker and swapped tales of women left behind or never known. They cooked in tin pots, shared tobacco, and stretched out in the dirt with saddles as pillows. Their beds under the sky, their lullabies sung by coyotes. Asterisk. Sometimes they faced danger not from men, but from nature. Flash floods that drowned cattle in moments, prairie fires that swept like hell, loose horses that stampeded at thunder snake bites. Broken limbs, long days without water, even boredom could be deadly, making a man reckless when he needed patience. Grit was not enough out there. A cowboy needed wisdom and heart. Asterisk. There was a code among them, unspoken but sacred, you helped a man in. Need you rode your share, you watched each other's backs, you didn't brag, you didn't steal, you took pride in your work. Even if no one noticed, it was the cowboy's way, simple, honest, hard, and pure like the land itself. This was the heart of the West, not in the shootouts or saloons, but in these long, quiet days of sweat and sun. Asterisk. Most cowboys were not the white heroes of dime novels. Many were black, Mexican, native even. Chinese hardened men with calloused hands and weathered faces who spoke in few words but meant everyone. Some could barely read but knew more about loyalty and life than any scholar. They were poets in notion, artists with a rope, priests of the range offering their youth to the altar of cattle and sky. Asterisk. Every herd had a trail boss, the leader, the one who knew the land and read the sky, who mapped the rivers and found the safest passes under his watch. The cowboys worked sun to sun, drove cattle hundreds of miles to the nearest railhead in Abilene or Dodge. Where Cheyenne there, the herd was sold, and they might get paid if luck held. They spent it quick in town boots. Whiskey, a warm meal, maybe a woman's smile, then it was back to the range, asterisk. Sometimes they were hired hands for rich ranchers. Sometimes they were drifters moving with the season. Sometimes they were boys running from something lawmen wore heartbreak. Sometimes they were just hungry, searching for purpose in the silence of the plains, and they found it in the rhythm of the trail, in the weight of a rope, in the lean strength of a good horse. Asterisk, horses were more than tools, they were partners, lifelines, companions. Each cowboy had his favorite, a horse he trusted with his life, who could feel the shift of his weight, hear the unspoken commands. Horses were trained to cut cattle, cross rivers, leap fences, and carry. Their riders through storm and fire, they were loved more than most things, and mourned like brothers when they died. Asterisk. There was a moment each day, just as the sun dipped low, and painted the world gold when the dust settled, and the herd calmed, and the cowboys dismounted, stretching, aching, and quiet, and in that stillness, they looked out across the open land and felt something deep and wordless, a peace carved by labor, pride earned, not in applause, but in sweat and silence. There was a kind of holiness only the range could give. Asterisk, cowboys had no homes. Not really. Their address was the open range. Their roof, the stars, their family, the men they rode beside for weeks, months. Sometimes years. Their stories were passed around fires, not books, and when they vanished, few remembered them by name, but every trail worn into the prairie, every forgotten grave, every old brand on a wandering steer whispered their legacy. Asterisk, women were rare on the trail, but not absent. Some rode with the men disguised or not, some cooked at chuck wagons, others ran ranches tougher than any man. They were respected not for beauty, but for grit. Some cowboys carried letters from sweethearts, others carried memories of mothers who raised them strong. All carried loneliness that dug deeper than the cold. Asterisk. The seasons ruled the cowboys' world. Spring was for branding, fall was for roundups, winter brought death and hardship, summer baked the land into thirst. Cattle moved slow in heat, fought the cold. In winter, calves were lost. Storms came, sudden work never stopped. The cowboy kept moving, kept watching, kept riding through all of it with the steady heart of someone who knew he was just part of the land. Asterisk. And when their time passed, when the open range gave way to fences and railroads and towns, the cowboy didn't vanish. He adapted. Some settled down, ranched, married, some drifted into memory. Their face is fading, but their way of life echoing in every western tale, every rodeo, every wide-brimmed hat and dusty boot, because the cowboy was not just a man, he was a spirit. Asterisk. Of grit, of loyalty and silence, of wind and sun, and the long hard ride across a land that asked for everything and gave back only truth, and that spirit still rides in the hearts of those who remember the West, not as a story, but as a way of life.